We continue now at the top of Daf Kufyud Zayinim and Beis Meseches Baba Kamma. This is Baba Kamma Daf 117b. The Gemara is continuing to discuss the story of Rabbi Yochanan and Rav Kahana. It said that Rav Kahana had died because Rabbi Yochanan thought that Rav Kahana was mocking him, but really Rav Kahana just had a cut on his lip, and so therefore now Rabbi Yochanan went to the cave where Rav Kahana was buried, and Hadrle Achna, there was a snake that was encircling the pit, the cave. Rashi says, Hadrle Achna, Nachash Gadol Asa Atzmo Kegalgal, there was a big snake that made itself like a circle, Umakif as Piyam Oretz, it encircled the entire cave, that whole entrance into where again Rav Kahana was buried. Vinosnin Znovo, Lesoch Pivot put its tail into its mouth, meaning the snake put its tail into its mouth. Ve'ein Adam Yochel Ikanes, nobody could enter into that cave. And so the Gemara continues, Amarle Achna Achna Psach Pumech, V'yichones Harav Eitzel Talmud. So Rabbi Yochanan said, snake, snake, open your mouth and allow the Rebbe to enter by the student. V'lo pasach, but he didn't open his mouth. So then he rephrased it, Yikones chaver, eitzel chaver, let the colleague enter by his colleague. V'lo pasach, still he didn't open his mouth. So then he rephrased it again, Yikones talmud eitzel harav, let the student enter by the master. Pasach le, so then he did open his mouth and he allowed him into the cave. Ba rachme v'ukme, and he davened, asked for mercy, and he was able to raise up Rav Kahana. Amar Lei said to him, I known that that's normally the way that the master looks, that you weren't mocking me, so lo chal shadaiti, so it wouldn't have affected my mind, I wouldn't have been depressed, and this wouldn't have happened. Hashta leisi mar bahadon, now let the master come with us. Amar Lei said to him, if you can ask for mercy, the sulo shechivna, that I won't die any longer, I won't die again, this won't happen again, so then azilna, so then I'll go. V'lo, but if you can't do that, lo azilna, I won't go. Hol v'cholef shaita cholef, since the moment has passed, the moment has passed. And so the Gemara says, Tyra, he awakened him, ukmein, he stood up, shaile kol sveika dehavale, he asked him all the doubts that he had, upashtinu nihil, and he answered them all. Hainu dam Rabbi Yochanan, that's what Rabbi Yochanan used to say, dilchon amri dilhoni, that which we said was yours, really it's theirs, meaning to say, he had assumed that the primacy of Torah learning was in Eretz Yisrael, but then he understood from meeting Rav Kahana that actually in Bavel they had maintained the traditions, and really the Torah was in Bavel. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. There was somebody who showed the silk of Rabbi Abba to the Gentiles again to inform that they would then seize it. Yosef, Rabbi Avo, Rabbi Chanina bar Papi, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, Rabbi Avo and Rabbi Chanina bar Papi and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha were sitting. Yosef, Rabbi Lo Gabayu, and Rabbi Lo was sitting by them. Savar l'chiyuve, and they thought that they should obligate him, that he has to pay. Mehad from the following Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Donas Hadin, let's say you have a judge, he judges a case, Zika es hachayev, and he judges it incorrectly. He says the person who's chayev is innocent, v'chayev is hazaka, the person who's innocent is chayev, timei asatar, that which is tar is tamei, v'tir asatame, or he says that which is tamei is tahar, masha asa, whatever the judge did is done, v'yashalim ibesa, but he has to pay back, he has to compensate for his incorrect ruling, and this seems to be a case of a garmi, this is a case of an indirect cause of damage, and that's the same over here. By informing regarding this silk, he caused the damage, so the person has to pay. Amar le Rabbi Law said, Hachi Amar Rav, this is what Rav said, V'usha nasa v'nasan biyad, that in that case of the judge over there, in every single case, and the Gemara in Sanhedrin goes through it, but in every single case, the judge actively, physically, actually takes the object which there was a ruling about that was incorrect. So it wasn't only a garmi where he said something and he issued a ruling that was incorrect, and therefore it indirectly caused this damage, but he actually did something and physically took the money, so to speak, from one party to the other, so you can't bring a proof from that case. And so when they realized they can't bring a proof from that case, Amri Le, so they said to him, Zil Agavi de Rabbi Shimon ben Eliakim, Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas, go to Rabbi Shimon ben Eliakim and Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas, the Daini Dina de Garmi, they judge cases of Garmi, cases of this indirect kind of damage, they'll allow you to collect. So Azal Gabayo, so he went to them and Chayvim Masnisan, and they said, yes, the person is indeed Chayv to pay, and they said it from our Mishnah, because the Mishnah said, in Machmas HaGazlan, that if it's because of the Gazlan, so Chayv Lahamid Lo Soda Acher, so then he has to give, the person has to give him a new field, he has to replace the field, because he again caused that damage. V'ukimnan, what did we say earlier? We established that what the Mishnah actually means is, that again we're talking about a situation where the person informed regarding the field, and that's how the property was seized, and so therefore you see again this kind of indirect damage, the person is responsible. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, but there was a person that it was deposited by him, a silver cup, and so then there were robbers that attacked him, and Shakla, so he took the silver cup which he was watching over, he was a shomer, and Yavalu, he gave that cup to them. Also, Lakame the Rabba, they came before Rabba. Patre, and he said he's exempt, he doesn't have to pay because he was saving himself from these plunderers by giving the silver cup. Amar le Abaye said to him, Hai matzel atzmo b'maman chaveru. What's this person doing? He's saving himself with the money of his friend, and so therefore he should be obligated. And so the Gemara says, Ella rather, Amar Ravashi says it depends on the situation. Chazinan we have to see. Inish amidhu, if he's a wealthy person, so then adaita dideyasu, so then they really came for his property, and he really is saving himself. He's saving his property with the property of his friend, and then he would be responsible. V'ilo, but if not, if he's not a wealthy person, so adaita de kasbasu, they came for the silver cup, so he's not really saving his own property. That's exactly what they came for. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. There was a person, and it was deposited by him a purse that the money was supposed to be used for the redemption of captives. Again, he was attacked by robbers. So he took this purse with the money and he gave it to them. Also, Lakami the Rabbi, he came before Rabba Patre, and he said he's exempt. Amar le Abaye said to him, but isn't he saving himself again with the money of his friend? And to that, he said to him, he responded, Ein lach pidyon shavuyim gadol mizeh. There's no greater redemption of captives. The whole money was designated for exactly this purpose, to redeem captives, and that's essentially what he used it for when these robbers came, and therefore he used the money in an appropriate fashion. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, How gavra da'aktim va'aseh chamra lemavra kame desliku inshe b'mavra. There was a person who brought a donkey onto a ferry before the people actually got onto the ferry. And this donkey that was on the ferry, he was going to cause it to sink. Also, Gavra, so a certain person came and Molachle Lechamra du Gavra Veshadil Nahara. He pushed that donkey of this particular individual into the river, Vitava, and the donkey drowned. This was in order to save the people on the boat. Also, Lakami the Rabbi came before Rabba. This case came before Rabba. Patre, and he said he's exempt because he was saving everybody. Amar le Abaye said to him, again, the same idea. Isn't he saving himself with the money of his friend? He should be obligated. Amar le said back to him, in this case, what you're really dealing with is a rodef, meaning to say that really this donkey posed a danger to everybody in terms of their lives. And the Gemara continues, Rabba l'taime, Rabba follows his opinion. The Amar Rabba, because Rabba says, rodef shaya rodef achar chaver lahargo. If somebody is chasing after his friend, if you have a rodef who's chasing after his friend to kill him, v'shiber esakelim, and the rodef breaks vessels, doesn't matter whose vessels. Bein shel nirdaf, whether he breaks the vessels of the person he's pursuing. Bein shel kaladam, whether he breaks the vessels of some other person. Pater is pater in that case. Now, why is the rodef pater? Sharei mischai benafsho, because the halach is that a rodef who's trying to pursue someone, he's allowed to be killed. You're allowed to kill him to stop him, and therefore he's essentially chayiv benafsho. He's essentially chayiv the death penalty, so to speak. And again, we apply the rule of kimle b'derabmine. Once someone is chayiv the death penalty, that's the strongest of punishments, and therefore he doesn't have any monetary obligations. And now the Gemara continues, Vinir Daf. Now let's say the person who's being pursued, Shashiber esakelim shel rodef, if he breaks the vessels of the rodef pater, so then he's pater. Now the Nirdaf's even allowed to kill the rodef, so also if he breaks his vessels, he's pater. Shelo yeh mamono chavala migufa, because his money's not going to be more beloved to him than his body. If the Nirdaf can kill the rodef, he's not going to be responsible, if that's okay, so to speak, so he's not going to be responsible for the breaking of the rodef's kalim. Avol shel kol adam, but let's say the Nirdaf breaks vessels of other people, so then chayiv, he's going to be chayiv. Why? As we've said, because it's forbidden for a person to save himself with the money of his friend. Now let's say you have a rodef who's pursuing another rodef, meaning to say there's an initial rodef who's pursuing someone to kill him, and now there's another rodef chasing that rodef to try to save that person. Lahatzel, he's trying to save him. Veshiber kalim, and he breaks vessels. So in that case, bein shel nirdaf, bein shel kol adam, it doesn't matter if the vessels are of the person being pursued or anybody, it doesn't make any difference. Pater is going to be pater. V'lo min adin. Now this is not actually the true halacha, so to speak, but it's something that it's a certain leniency we have for this person who's trying to save. The reason why we do it is if we didn't say this, if we said that this person was trying to save someone else, if we had said otherwise, if we said that he's responsible, no one's going to try to save his friend from a rodef, so this encourages people to save others. And Rashi says, V'lo min hadin, this is really not the strict letter of the law, because again, if somebody saves himself with someone else's money, he's chayiv. Certainly if he saves others with his friend's money. Again, but even though it's not the strict letter of the law, this is a leniency we give to this person to encourage people to save others. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Shatfa Nahar. This is talking again about a case where a robber takes a field, but then a river overflows and it essentially floods the field. So Omer Lo, so the robber can say to the original owner, Hareshal Chalafanecha, take what is yours before you. I'm returning the field. The fact that it was damaged by the flood, the robber is not responsible for that. Rashi explains, Shatfa Nar, Shahaisal Svas Hanar, meaning this field was by the edge of a river. Vigbiya Safaso, and so the river overflowed, Vamayim Shochim, V'korin Tachas Hasafim, Espashet, Besoch Hasad, it floods the field. So in that case, essentially, that's something that would have happened anyhow to that field. That is not something the robber is responsible for. And the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Hagozel Sadam Echaver, if somebody steals a field from his friend, Vishat Fanar, and the river overflows and floods the field, Chayiv Lahamid Lo Sada'achar, he needs to provide for him a new field. Divrei Rebbe Lazar, that's the opinion of Rebbe Lazar, that's obviously not like our Mishnah. The Chachamim Omer, and the Chachamim say, Omer Lo Hareshal Chalafanecha, he can say to him, take what is yours before you. That is in line with what our Mishnah says. And the Gemara now explains the Machlokus. But my Kamiflagi, what exactly are they arguing about? Meaning, what are Rebbe Lazar and the Chachamim arguing about? The answer is Rebbe Lazar darash ribuye umeyute. Rebbe Lazar, when he takes a look at the pasuk, he darshans it in the fashion of what we call ribuy and miyut, which is inclusions and exclusions. And the pasuk says v'chichesh ba'miso. This pasuk is talking about stealing, and it's talking about returning that which is stolen. So it says v'chichesh ba'miso. That's a ribuy. That's an inclusion. That includes all kinds of things. But pikadon, it talks about, again, you're denying various monetary obligations. Pikadon miyet, that's an exclusion. And kol asher yishav alav lasheker, then it says anything where you take an oath, a false oath, chaz of riba, that's another inclusion. And so therefore we say riba umiyet v'riba. If you have an inclusion, exclusion, inclusion, riba hakol, that really includes basically everything. Umay Rabbi kol mili, what do we include? We include basically everything. Umay miyet, but what is excluded? We're only going to exclude one thing, miyet shtaros. We're just going to exclude documents, meaning documents are not considered to be stolen property like other property. As Rashi says, Ravi kol mili, we include all things, va'afilu karkos, meaning even land. That's the point. Land is included in the halachas of gezela. L'shvua, in terms of the halachas that we have in terms of taking a false shvua, we discussed earlier in the Mesechet the idea if you take a false shvua and you admit, you restore the property, you pay a fifth, you bring a carbon, ulhei shavan, and the regular rules of a gezela, of returning the gezela. But miyet shtaros, but we're excluding documents. Why? She'ein gufan mammon. The idea of documents is they don't have any intrinsic value. It's something you're going to use to collect the monetary debt. To Yav Le'niyar Balma, it's just a piece of paper. It's not really worth anything. And so that is something that is going to be excluded according to Rebbe Lazar, but that is the only thing that is excluded. The point over here is that you're going to include karka. And the Gemara continues, V'Rabbanan, now according to the Rabbanan, Darshi Klal Uprati, they darshan psukim in the fashion of Klal Uprat. V'kichesh Klal, the word V'kichesh is a Klal, B'pikadon Prat, the word B'pikadon is a Prat, meaning a generalization, and then you have a specification, Omikal Chazar Klal, and then when it says Omikal, that's another generalization. So Klal Upratu Klal, when you have a Klal Pratu Klal, Yatadon Elakain Prat, the rule is, it has to be similar to the Prat. And what do we mean similar to the Prat? Maha Prat Davar Metaltal V'Gufo Mammon, just like the item that is specified is a movable object and it's something that's intrinsically, it has value, meaning like not like a star. Af kol davar metaltal v'gufa mamon. So too, we're only including within these laws relevant to stealing, we're only including something that's movable and something that has that intrinsic value. Yatsu karkos, that excludes land, she'ein metaltalin, that's not a movable object. Yatsu avodim, it excludes slaves, shehukshu lekarkos, they are compared to land. Yatsu shtaros, it also excludes documents, she'afa bisha metaltalin, ein gufan mamon, even though they're movable objects, but they don't have that intrinsic value. And the Gemara continues, Vadatanya, but that which we learned in a Braisa, it says, Hagozel esapara, let's say a person steals a cow, Vishat fanar, and again the river comes and sweeps it away. Chayev lahamid lo para divrei Rebbe Lazar. Rebbe Lazar says he has to provide a new cow. V'chachamim omer lo hareshel chalafenech, and the chachamim say he can say, take what is yours before you. Now here we have the exact same machlokas we have by land, but here we can't give the same logic, because here we're talking about a cow. What's going on? So Hasan, but my kamiflagi, so the Gemara says there in that Braisa, what are they arguing about? And so the Gemara says to that, Amar Rapapa says, Hasam b'may askin, and over there, what are we dealing with? Kegon shegazel sad mechaver. The case is a person steals a field from his friend, v'haisa, and it was, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yod Ches Amud Aleph.